Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Darkening of Mirkwood, session 97. Tonight's entertainment, I'm talking like anyone's ever going to watch this again except for me, but anyway, tonight's entertainment is a little something special. We're doing another sort of a one shot or a feeder game. In this case, it is we're doing a one shot, going back in time just a bit for Denethor, and also Denethor's elven companion Lomondor. Lomondor and Celebrindle. Lomondor is going to be played by PJ tonight, and Celebrindle is Lomondor's childhood rival, you might say. And so we're going to be beginning tonight in the late spring, early summer of the year 2963, really just a couple of weeks before the current adventures of the campaign. So the most current events being session 96, which was a really fun session for everyone. And we begin as the three of you elves are wandering along the banks of the Long Lake. You're wandering along the Long Lake. Let me just switch this over to our map here. So you're wandering along the banks of the Long Lake towards the southern end of the lake, where it kind of intersects the river running and begins to flow into the long marshes. It's not too uncommon for elves to be here to patrol. The safety the long marshes have become increasingly dangerous over the years, and the safety of the cargo that passes along the river running is quite important to the Elven King, as he has much personally invested in it, you might say. But you are not here as patrollers, but rather as sort of the many wandering companies of elves in the Dale lands and the northern part of the forest of Mirkwood. For although the Elven King lives deep underground beneath great halls of stone that were hollowed out there by the dwarves long ago, most of his people do not have such fixed dwelling places. Some of them do live in houses, some of them do live in flats in the trees, but most of the folk of Thranduil prefer to wander under the greenwood. And this is what the three of you find yourselves doing today. Some of you are more accustomed to wandering than others. Specifically you, Denethor, right? You are sort of a wanderer. That's kind of your kind of what you get your joy from, is going new places, experiencing new things, and seeing all the sort of the delights that Arda has to offer. I have to drag. I'm gonna drag over our new characters here. Okay, so here's Celebrindle, and here's Lomondor. With you today are, if you're a wanderer by habit, Denethor, Lomondor is just about the opposite, right? Lomondor is a scholar, and he has spent, which is let's not say unusual among the elves of Mirkwood, but it's certainly less typical among them than it might be under some other elves. But the elves everywhere have long and retentive memories. In fact, elven memory itself is very different from mortal memory. When an elf remembers something that has happened, it is as though they are reliving it. It's not just the way, even more so than it is for us. It's a much more involved, a much more personal thing for them when they remember something. Much more active thing, if it makes sense. So among the elves everywhere, there are lore masters to be found, and Lomondor is one such aspiring lore master. And he's accompanied today by Celebrindle. And the three of you had been part of one of these wandering companies of elves, and a day or two ago, you'd sort of, by mutual agreement, broken off to kind of walk down to the southern edge of the lake together and just see what there was to be seen. There are many folk of the raft elves in the area, so there's really no danger of not having a place to stay should you need to. But all three of you, being elves, are quite comfortable in nature. It's late spring, early summer. The weather is fine, um, and there's nothing more pleasant than singing, laughter, and a little bit of partying under the trees in the north of Middle Earth in the spring. And so you've been watching Lomondor and Celebrindle as they kind of go back and forth, um, sometimes debating not some of the knottier points of law. Celebrindle's, um, some law or some custom or some ancient song or poem that Celebrindle's correcting Lomondor on. Lomondor, which lore specialties do you have?
I've got Mirkwood lore and rhymes of lore.
Okay, in addition to Mirkwood lore and Rhymes of lore, Celebrindle also has Elven lore, which means that she has knowledge of not just the Sindarian tongue, which you all speak. You all speak a Sylvan dialect of the Sindarian tongue, but she is even acquainted and knows a fair amount of the Noldoran tongue, Quenya, the tongue of the High Elves who came from over the sea. And so and so that sort of gives her access to a lot of lore that you would just be unable to read.
Well,
Um,
that's nice.
yeah, and
So that
so Celebrindle kind of runs ahead of. So sometimes when she's not sort of correcting your grammar, which is mostly a playful thing. You and Celebrindle have known each other since you were both children. She kind of runs ahead of the two of you. You are all going armed. This is still Mirkwood, after all. And Celebrindle, almost sort of unusually, is armed more heavily than either of you, in that instead of a bow, she's equipped with a long, slender spear and a light shield. And it's still very light and very graceful gear, and she doesn't seem to have any trouble transporting it. But it's just it's almost jarring to see this fair, dark-haired elf maiden, always ready with a joke and a laugh, and a friendly correction. But also just the reminder that this is Mirkwood after all, and you have to be ready for anything. So, as the three of you are going on, Celebrindle suggests that she says, "I think that we should tell stories to pass the time."
I agree.
She turns to you.
Romandor, do you have any good stories?
him, he might have. Me, I do not.
Well, did I ever tell you guys the time I met Bjorn? Visible?
You you met Beowen the skin changer.
Yes.
Was that after the Battle of Five Armies, or was it at the battle?
It was during the battle. Yes. Fought ferociously.
I see. I did not go to the battle. I was hard at my books, but um, certainly a great deed of many tales, and you tell it so eloquently, Denethor.
Thank you.
She laughs a little as she is being sarcastic. Um, she says, "Well, I know a song. Um, you both, of course, know the tale of Baron Luthien."
Jog my memory.
Give me a lore roll, both of you.
Uh,
Is this the
well, I obviously know it.
Okay.
who's my?
It should be up under. Should be the very bottom, right up under wits.
Okay. Yes, the Baron of the tale of Baron and Luthien is perhaps the most well known and well beloved story of the Eldar of Middle Earth. Um, it it tells the story of a mortal man, Baron, and an elf maiden, Luthien, in Beleriand long ago, which is now sunk into the sea. And together, the two of them went with great peril into Angband, the Hells of Iron, and wrested a Silmaril, one of the holy jewels from the crown of Morgoth, the Dark Lord. So Sauron is the Dark Lord of the Third Age of Middle Earth, but Sauron's sort of boss, if you will, much, much bigger and more evil than Sauron himself, was Morgoth, and he was sort of the villain of the whole First Age of Middle Earth. And so what Baron and Luthien managed to accomplish was to break into his castle and actually pry one of the gems from the crown of Morgoth itself, which was at a time when Morgoth's might was deemed completely invincible, and so it gave hope to the men of Middle Earth. Eventually, they had a son named they had a son named Dior, and he had a daughter named Elwing, and Elwing was the mother of Elrond, who you guys have probably heard of. So anyway, very important lineage in the people of Middle Earth, and a really important story. It's actually one of the main stories of Tolkien's Legendarium. And she begins to sing just a few stanzas from the Lay of Baron and Luthien. This is the 10th canto or song, which tells the story of when Baron was trapped on the island of werewolves, which was then being ruled over by Sauron himself. And tells the story of how Luthien had come to rescue him with the aid of Huan, the greatest hound that has ever lived. And that Sauron himself took the shape of a great werewolf and attempted to devour Luthien. And she sings, "Then in his dream, Baron's dream, he sang, and loud and fierce his chanting rang, old songs of battle in the north, of restless deeds, of marching forth, to dare uncounted odds and break great powers, and towers and strong walls shake. And over all the silver fire that once men named the burning briar, the 7 stars that Varda sent about the north were burning yet, a light in darkness, hope and woe, the emblem vast of Morgoth's foe. Huan, Huan, I hear a song, far underwelling, far but strong, a song that Baron bore aloft. I hear his voice, I have heard it oft in dream and wandering." Whispering low, thus Luthien spoke, on the bridge of woe, in mantle wrapped at dead of night, she sat and sang, and to its height and to its depth the wizard's isle, rock upon rock and pile upon pile, trembling echoed, the werewolves howled, and Huan, hidden, lay and growled, watchful, listening in the dark, waiting for battle cruel and stark. Sauron heard that voice, and stood, wrapped in his cloak and sable hood on his high tower. He listened long, and smiled, and knew that elvish song. "Ah, little Luthien, what brought the foolish fly to web unsought? Morgoth, a great and rich reward to me thou wilt owe, when to thy hoard the jewel is added. down he went, and forth his messengers he sent. Still Luthien sang. A creeping shape, with blood-red tongue and jaws agape, stole on the bridge. But she sang on, with trembling limbs and wide eyes wan. The creeping shape leapt to her side, and was grasped and silent, fell and died. And still they came, still one by one, and each was seized, and there were none returned with padding feet to tell that a shadow lurketh fierce and fell at the bridge's end, and that below the shuddering waters loathing flow o'er the grey corpses Huon killed. A mightier shadow slowly filled the narrow bridge, a slavering hate, and awful werewolf, fierce and great, pale Draugluin, the old grey lord of wolves and beasts of blood abhorred, who fed on flesh of man and elf beneath the chair of Sauron himself. No more in silence did they fight, howling and baying smote the night, till back by the chair where he had fed, to die the werewolf yammering fled. Huon is there, he grasped and died, and Sauron was filled with wrath and pride. And she's getting on to the really good part of the song that describes how Sauron himself took on the form of a werewolf to go out and fight Huon, the captain of the Hounds of Valinor, and of their great battle there before the bridge, as Luthien sang. But just as she's getting into this bit and the song is starting to pick up a bit more, you all catch on the breeze the whiff of smoke. And looking towards the south, you see a dark black plume rising from somewhere beyond the next hill.
Well, that can't be good.
That's always the way with singing.
No. I'm talking about the smoke rising from the south.
I know what you mean. I just mean that's always the way with singing. You start and then something interrupts you. Well,
let's go investigate. You finish your song later.
So she follows you, Denethor, as the three of you make your way. As you round the top of the next hill, first of all, why don't you both give me song rolls, just for your storytelling efforts in general.
I missed.
Okay. You shouldn't be weary, Denethor.
Oh, I was weary from.
Oh, yeah. Just make a note of whatever you're set at and reset everything to max, except for hope. But you can reset your endurance and everything else to max, just for this adventure. So just make a note of where you were at, and then you can reset after the game is done, if the session's over.
Well, Denethor succeeded then.
Yeah, Denethor, you gain one bonus just for the storytelling and kind of chewing on this tale of valor in the days of old. Hearing the songs of the greatest heroes of elves and men that have ever lived, really. You kind of take heart a little bit, and you have one bonus success die to use. You can use it anytime in tonight's session to add to either a corruption test, so a wisdom roll, or a valor test. So, all right. So the three of you make your way across the. You're in the south of the Dalelands, and it's Mirkwood has sort of broken up into marshland here as the river passes through, and so it's fairly hard going, right? It's very you have to sort of weave your way among the marshes, but you're all pretty familiar with the territory, especially you, Denethor. So it's not very difficult to kind of weave your way through the marshes, and make your way to firmer ground. And the firmer ground on the eastern side of the river running is it is home to a lot of homesteaders. These would be either men who serve King Bard and live sort of in the Dale Ends, or they could be men of the lake who have small farms and cottages and things like that along the lake itself rather than in Lake Town proper. And in fact, many such farmers basically provide the food, like grain and things like that obviously the people in Lake Town can't grow for themselves. So as you kind of pick your way through the marsh and finally reach solid ground, it takes you about a half hour, or less than that. It takes you probably about 5-6 minutes to kind of make your way to this rise. And as you come over the top of it, you see what appears to be down at the bottom of the valley, on the other side of this ridge that you're standing on now. You see what appears to be a burning cottage. It's a pretty small looking kind of a farm cottage. So there are fences, but pretty low fences. There's a farmhouse, a couple of outbuildings, a barn. But the cottage itself appears to be on fire, and you can see a place where the fence around the stockade has basically been broken down. And there, standing kind of in the middle of the farmyard with his back to the burning building, you see a young human man. You'd guess probably no older than 15, maybe 16 years of age. And he is standing with his back to his burning home with an axe, not a battle axe, but a wood chopping axe, basically a hatchet in one hand and a burning brand in the other. And surrounding him, you see 3 enormous black wolves. What are you guys doing?
I guess it's high time to shoot these wolves.
When she sees this, Celebrindle immediately, scholar though she is, kind of unslings her shield from over her shoulders and buckles it to her arm, begins running down the hill.
Right.
Well, I guess this is a case where we can use our opening volleys.
Yeah.
You can, and I think as woodland bows you get an extra one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, so we get 2 apiece. All right, so bada bing, bada bing. I'm going for the first one. Get my miss.
Okay. You pull the bow back and release. You both release volleys of arrows, but they're kind of hasty. You're rushing a bit, and you both miss. Denethor, you should be able to use your buttons for that, I think, right?
What's that?
You should be able to use your buttons for that, Denethor. Yeah, the advantage to... The advantage... Okay, one sec, PJ. The advantage to using the buttons is it gives me a nice little output that shows damage bonuses and stuff.
That's
What should be the damage bonus for bows?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Well, the damage bonus is always your basic body score. So it should be 5.
Oh, okay.
I'll set that. There you go. All right. So both of you loose arrows, one after the other, as Celebrindle runs down the hill, hoping to save the boy. And your first couple of shots are hasty, mostly taken in surprise, and they just kind of go wide. But one of your arrows, Lomendor, strikes home, and you do, see, that'd be 10 points of damage.
Yep.
All right. You hit one of the wolves square between the shoulder blades, and you see it stagger and yelp, and it turns, and it sniffs the air, and it sees Celebrindle running down the hill and the 2 of you, and it kind of barks to the other 2 wolves who are with it, and one of them throws its head back and howls. Do you have one more, Denethor?
I think that was.
Okay, you just did it. All right. That one also misses.
Are we going against the TN-17?
Yeah, because
That's
it's 12. Ranged attacks are always 12 plus their parry. So, yes. So it's T and 17. The wolves now turn, and one of them charges towards Celebrindle. Um, and you guys are going to have to pick melee stances.
so. Let's see. They
One
have
foot for the man
5.
and Archer in rearward.
Um, Typically speaking, you've got to have 3 people in a melee stance, but I would say under the circumstances, we've got the young man can count as one. So one of you can stay in the rearward stance.
I've got a bow rating of 3.
Yeah,
So
yeah, on the sword.
Okay.
And I will move to forward.
All right. Celebrindle, as she charges down the hill, the wolves snarl and lunge at the two of you. One of them, as Celebrindle actually reaches them first, comes charging towards her. As it does, she kind of drops to one knee, raises her shield, and locks her spear in position. And the wolf misses. Actually, it leaps on Celebrindle, and he just kind of shoves it off of her. She just shoves it off of her with the shield. The other one comes at you, Denethor. I am a wolf and I'm biting an elf. Bitey elf. Alright, alright, you take 3 points of damage, Denethor. This wolf leaps forward towards you and just fixes its teeth into your arm. The last remaining wolf is kind of staggering slowly, and the boy seems to be holding it at bay as it has Lomondor's arrow embedded in its shoulders. Celebrindle is going to... she takes her spear as the wolf leaps, and she kind of catches him on her shield with surprising strength. And gosh darn it, elf dice. She tries to thrust at it, but as she does so, she actually loses her balance a bit and staggers back, and for a moment her defenses are open. So she's got a called shot coming her way. Of course she does. Denethor, you're up.
Alright, I would like to intimidate foe.
Okay.
Off. Is that TN-14?
Yes. It's actually 13. Okay, you missed. Do you want to spend a point of hope on that?
Can I use my bonus success die?
No, that's for corruption and valor test. I will say you guys have, for this adventure, 3 points of fellowship hope,
Alright.
okay.
if you want to use that.
I'm fine. I'm fine with him using that.
Alright.
Okay. So that will succeed then. Alright. Let's see here. Also, just as a point of order, you are technically seized right now, Denethor, so your parry is halved, and you cannot change stances.
Is the wolf grabbing me?
Yeah, it's clamped onto your arm. It can't attack you further while doing that, but your parry is halved. All right. Cool. So you succeed and you get a great success. So that's 3 points of hate. Is that right?
Yep. Yes, I do believe so. 2, 3, and 4.
Well, darn. Okay.
I hate to make it worse for myself. It says on the forward stance, ordinary success.
Oh, the mat is wrong. It's off by 1.
Okay.
So whatever the mat says, add 1 to it, and that is the appropriate amount. I've just never gone back and photoshopped it. So. All right. What do you do to intimidate them, Denethor?
It's start beating this wolf on my arm in the head
Okay.
with my other arm.
Start punching the wolf in the head. And
In Elvish.
what's that?
While yelling in Elvish.
While yelling in Elvish, the sudden appearance of 3 elf warriors seems to have disconcerted the wolves, and they all kind of shrink in fear a bit. All right. It is Lomondor's turn.
I'm shooting at the same wolf.
All right, go ahead and give me an attack roll.
Which, if I ain't whoops, hold on. If I ain't mistaken, is this one right here. Bada bing, bada boom. I throw 3 wands. That's embarrassing.
Oh.
Actually, kind of impressive.
Embarrassing and amazing all at the same time.
If that was 3 sixes.
Yeah, that. If only, PJ. You loose another arrow, but at this point, you're trying not to hit your friends, and you're trying not to hit the young man, and your arrow just kind of, one of the wolves darts out of the way just as the arrow hits the mud beside him. It is the wolves' turn. The wounded one sees an opportunity and lunges at you, Denethor.
Yes.
What is your parry?
7.
Okay, so it's halved to 3. So a 9 would hit. Okay, so you take 3 points of damage. As one of the wolves is like holding your arm down, and the one that's wounded with Lomondor's arrow lunges at you and snaps kind of at your leg. The other one is going to attack Celebrindle with the bite. And she again, oh boy, it's really lucky that hit, because that would have been a great success if it had hit. So it's, yeah. So Celebrindle, as she's trying to recover her balance, she manages to get her shield up just in time as the wolf bears down on her again. And this last one, he's gonna bite you again, Denethor. You take another 3 points of damage. All right. The other wolf kind of. So now you've got basically the 2 on top of you. They're snapping at you. He's let go of your arm for the moment in order to take another bite. You haven't sustained any significant injuries, but these are big wolves. And actually, do you have shadow lore, enemy lore, anything like that? I don't think you do you?
Mirkwood lore and folk lore.
Okay. Give me a lore roll on these guys. See if you notice anything odd about them. Okay, yeah. There is something wrong with these wolves. So they're sort of normal wild wolf sized, which is the wrong thing. Because these are puppies. Like, not puppies, but like, these are young wolves. They couldn't be more than a year old. They're probably younger than that. But they're huge. Like, they have all the sort of the young wolf cub characteristics. You can't even imagine what kind of a monster you'd be talking about if these wolves made it to adulthood. Their eyes are sunk back in their skulls, and deep jet black, but they seem to almost be burning with their own light. Maybe that's just the light from the cottage, which is the other weird thing. You know very distinctly that wolves are afraid of fire. Everyone knows that wolves are afraid of fire. These wolves don't seem to be perturbed by it at all. All right, it is top of the round. So Celebrindle and Denethor. So Celebrindle is going to again thrust a spear at the wolf attacking her, and she will hit it for 5 points of damage. You see her kind of shove the wolf off with her shield as she brings the butt of the spear around and kind of clocks it across the side of the head. All right, Denethor, what are you doing?
Intimidate foe again.
Okay.
He's trying to scare these wolves off.
Now, uh, all right. I believe you actually lose 1 point of hope in
Well, I
addition to
mean,
your failure.
he could spend one. He could spend 1 point of
Right,
hope
but
to make
if
that. So,
yeah, but if you roll an eye while making a intimidate foe action, I think you lose a point of hope.
oh,
So
I thought it was just failure.
maybe it is. Let's check. Real
It says
quick.
just failure on
Yeah,
the map.
I don't trust the map.
You don't trust the map.
Don't trust the map.
This is one hopes of ratting one.
Let's see here. Intimidate foe. Boom, boom, boom. On a successful roll, the enemy's morale has been shaken. Lore Master divides the hate point loss among the company's adversaries in any way he sees fit. I do not see anything in the actual core rules that say that that you lose a point of hope when you fail.
Oh. Well, the map may be wrong.
Well, yeah, it
on
was
that.
made by somebody I know on one of the One Ring forums, and they may have just maybe that's a house rule they have or something. So,
Oh.
yeah.
It
So
may be.
okay, it does say a hero who just received a wound or received it during the previous round cannot attempt to intimidate his foes, which is interesting. Didn't know that.
That's
Well, now you know.
that's not damage. That's like actual wound.
Yeah, an actual wound. Yeah, there's nothing here that says that you get a hate point if you fail. So, okay, glad we looked that up. Note to self.
Should I use a fellowship point to make that happen? This is success.
I'm fine with that.
All right. At this point, the wolves are. What do you do to intimidate them again?
This time I'm just staring at one of them in the eyes and walking slowly forward.
Okay. You do so, and the wolves take a step back, but they don't seem nearly as frightened as they did previously. At this point, it's almost, if you've ever seen a rabid animal, it's almost like that. It's almost like there's not a lot of reason left. Lomendor, what are you doing?
I am shooting my arrow. Oh, shooting arrows.
All right.
And
Nice.
the wounded wolf.
So as the wounded wolf lunges at Denethor again, you hear a loud, just kind of like the sound a dog makes if it gets its foot accidentally stepped on or something like that. Just that sudden yipping noise as the wolf rolls over dead with a second one of Lomendor's arrows in its hide. At that point, the other two wolves break and run for the marshes.
Nice.
The cottage is, however, still very much on fire. And you can see the boy now, as you can turn and look at him, is bleeding heavily from several wounds.
I guess
Healing feature?
I guess anything about fire making would it help put a fire out, would it?
Not so much, but if you guys wanted to make some efforts to save what could be saved of the cottage, I would say that maybe make a athletics test.
that. Du- 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 du-
All right. Um, let's see what Celebrindle is up to.
Yeah, well,
Well, fortunately, between Celebrindle and Lomondor, the two scholars, two book nerds,
The word.
managed to kind of like you. Celebrindle using her spear, and Lomondor, you kind of drop your bow and pick up a pitchfork that's nearby, stuck in a pile of hay, and you use it to pull most of the burning thatch down off the roof of the cottage, so it just can sort of burn freely. The cottage is pretty heavily damaged, but it's at least no longer burning, and the walls still seem to be more or less intact. And you see the boy has just kind of, as soon as the wolves left, almost collapsed from the rush of adrenaline and the loss of blood, and apparently his home burning.
um,
Do you have any healing?
what
people?
is? I have 1 point in healing. What does Celebrimble
I have 2.
do?
Celebrindle's
Okay.
healing is not her thing.
Okay.
Attempt to heal.
Okay.
Help anyway.
Let's see what you got.
Well, that's a
All right.
natural great success.
So maybe not so good at the putting out the fire things, but pretty good at this stuff. All right. Okay. You, as the other two elves tried the best they can to kind of pull apart the parts of the house that are still burning, hoping to save some of the structure, you kind of drag the boy back away from the heat and begin seeing to his wounds. There are a couple that are fairly severe wounds. I mean, they're going to take days or maybe even weeks to recover from. There's nothing fatal as far as you can tell. And the boy certainly seems to be of hardy stock. And as you tend to his wounds, he kind of, and maybe apply just a bit of wine to his lips, he slowly begins to come out of his swoon. Oh, fair folk. Well, I say I wasn't expecting that, but I wasn't really expecting any of it.
Why don't you tell us what happened?
My name's Rooney. My father's away in the town, selling, buying and selling. We grow the grain and sell it in the fall, and in the spring we sell the beer to the men in the town. I was just out about to see to the fields when those three demons broke in through the stockade. It just knocked the gate right down. I grabbed the axe. It was the closest thing to hand, and oh my goodness, I burned the house down. Oh, burned the house. I was trying to get a fire started to scare him off, and then one of them jumped at me, and the brand got tangled in the rafters. And oh, that's gonna kill me if those wolves didn't do it already. heard the stories, but I didn't believe any of them were true. This close to Lake Town. Didn't. I mean, the marshes is one thing, but open lands and here, even in the daylight, I've never heard of this before. In a bit, go to bed. Okay, sorry. Anyway, what are you guys doing?
What stories have you heard of the marshes? I'm unfamiliar with these giant wolves.
I mean, the usual stories about the marshes, goblins and hobgoblins and ogres and things like that, but I've heard from a couple of the other homesteaders. There's old Sigurður. He lives a few leagues that away, points away, sort of northeast along the shore. And last week Theodar, he said he saw him. Big black demon wolves. Not afraid of the daylight, not afraid of fire. They say they're coming out of the marsh. You're gonna laugh at this. They say it's the old legends of Poison Fang come to life.
Would I by any chance recognize that name?
Give me a lore roll.
Do we get an advancement point for our lore rolls earlier?
If you succeeded, sure.
A great success.
All right, PJ.
I know my stuff.
So Poison Fang is a pretty poor. It's a pretty poor common tongue, a translation in the common tongue of an elvish word. Carchalhoer. And Carchalhoer means something like the venomous maw or the venomous jaws. And you know that with a great success, you additionally, it's not hard to recognize the connection. But you also know that there are, in this part of the world, and we're talking very old legends that stretch back hundreds, maybe even more than 1,000 years. The legend of Carchalhoer, this great, some people say demon, some people say it was a she-wolf, some say it was a spirit of an Angband that fled, much like the werewolf of Mirkwood. In fact, some people even speculate that Carchalhoer was the werewolf of Mirkwood's mate. But basically a great demonic spirit in wolf form that fled the ruin of the First Age when Beleriand was destroyed by the Valar. And it's believed to have taken up residence in the eastern parts of Mirkwood in the Long Marshes. But everyone knows that the elves imprisoned it long ago. When I say long ago, back in the Second Age, so more than 3,000, almost 3,000 years ago. The elves imprisoned it long ago, and no one has seen it for an age.
Well, so I turn to Celebrinda and say, well, if I'm not mistaken, he's referencing the Carchalhoer, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Richard.
Well, if you mean the Carchalhoer, then I mean, mannish superstitions are. And she's kind of saying this aside to you all as Nathan's still talking to the boy, or sorry, as Denethor is still talking to the boy. She's kind of saying aside to you. Well, if Carchalhoer is indeed whom he seems to be referencing, then it's rather unlikely that she has anything to do with all of this. Everyone knows. King Orufer imprisoned her with the help of the Parthguarieg. You're looking at me like you don't remember what the Parthguarieg is. Do you want to keep pretending that you don't know, or should I save you further embarrassment and enlighten you?
What were you doing?
Go ahead.
What was that?
What were you doing during that class?
Yeah. Werewolf 101, like. He was drawing in his book. Get in bed, girls. Okay. Alright, one sec. Get in bed.
Obviously, you study a little harder than I do.
Well, perhaps if you spend a little more time looking at your books and a little less time looking at me. The Parthguarieg was a spirit of a spirit of the hunter of Orome. And the legend says that with its help, King Orufer imprisoned the venomous maw in a valley, which the Parthguarieg and its descendants have watched over ever since. No, unless someone has simply wandered into the valley and killed the sacred stag. I can't imagine that we're actually dealing with an ancient spirit of evil. It's much more likely to be just perhaps an especially large warg or one of the brood of the werewolf of Mirkwood.
It still seems mighty strange that they're just out in broad daylight.
I agree, that bit is troubling. So I assume that whole exchange was in Elvish, which poor Rooney here doesn't understand.
Yep.
And so you kind of watch as you talk back and forth to each other. Right. He tries to sit up, Denethor. As he does so, he kind of winces, and you see blood start to form under one of the bandages again. I've got to get on the hoof. I've got to track those beasts down. They'll come back.
You stay here, recover. I will go track it.
You don't understand. If I just let those beasts roam free and Father comes back and he finds the house burned up, this really hurts. He kind of leans back again. Right, but if you get that one that bit me, and I nail its pelt to my door, then at least perhaps Father will understand.
Sounds like a deal.
Gillibrindle looks at you, Lomondor, and says, well, are you up for perhaps a little more practical application of our learning?
Yes. If you can keep up.
I tell you what, Lomondor. because I am young and because it is spring and the sun is high in the sky, I shall make a wager with you. The dramatic, on point, wolf howling.
I think I hear them in the
This
distance.
is
Yeah. I shall make a wager with you. Let us say that if we find this creature, and it is in fact this Carchalhoer, then then I shall dance for you at the Festival of Midsummer. But if it should not be, then you shall shave your head.
oh. Ooh.
Well, I'm told my dancing is not a sight to be missed. And I should personally enjoy coming to the festival and watching the lights of Ormel's lanterns glancing off of your shaved pate. If you can keep up. What are you doing, PJ?
As tipped in as that would be.
Oh, come on.
I don't think any it would take me knowing absolutely for sure to make a deal like that.
She shrugs a little and says, well, if you don't feel like living on the wild side, perhaps you should stay here. I'm sure Denethor and I can handle whatever it is. Can't we, Denethor? And
Oh please.
she kind of slings her spear
ain't-
over her shoulder and starts walking off towards the marshes.
I follow her and say, "Oh please, it was I who brought down that wolf."
You two are quite finished flirting with each other. Go find some.
All right, I'm gonna go switch the kids over to music. I'll be right back.
All right. Oh man.
I was thinking like, long elven hair. Yeah, no. If it had been something else, I might have taken. I would have taken that risk, but that I wouldn't even shave my head, and I don't have that much up here.
I should have made Denethor better at fighting. I don't think he's done anything useful in any fight yet.
Well, as you upgrade him, he'll get better. And if he so happens to die, you can move your points and stuff, or a percentage of your points over to the new character.
Oh.
Has Richard told you anything about our Emboria campaign?
No.
Well, last
Is that this game or is that a different game?
that's a different game. That's the world that he wrote up. He's been writing up himself for the past 16 years.
Oh wow.
But he he runs that on Tuesday nights. It was on Tuesday nights that we have our Latour campaigns. But we had a very intense session due to circumstances and two people getting lost and one that never has yet to show up, and then Arthur's character abandoning us for some swan lady. We went down from an adventure that started with 8 people all the way down to 4 people, and 4 people took and it was me, um, my character, Ben's character, Sophie's character, and then Hope's character. Us 4 went against six cultists and then a gaunt man, which was the boss, which so happens to be my arch enemy, who back about 20 years ago in my character's history um killed his mom
All right.
and sister.
So, I don't know what I just missed.
Oh, we were just talking about the Embor. I was just telling him about our Emboria campaign.
Uh-huh. All right. So, do you all begin heading out towards the marshes?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Give me hunting rolls to try and follow tracks, I assume, unless you're doing something else.
Uh-oh. I only got one in hunting. This is not good. I missed. Can I use that last fellowship pool there?
You can both give me rolls, though.
Or
All right. Let's see here. Well, as you're both completely inept at this, Celebrindle shall try.
Panther's just really bad at everything.
Has he ever made a roll for anything?
I don't think so. Healing.
Well-
Healing. That's right.
he can heal.
You can heal.
All right. Well, is anyone spending a point of hope?
Well,
Can I use that last fellowship
oh yeah.
pool? Or okay. Yeah, that'll bump me up to 15.
All right. Between the three of you, I mean, you'd think between 3 elves, somebody could track 2 wolves moving without a great deal of stealth through the marshes, but it's surprisingly difficult. Perhaps because of the perhaps most of all because of just the nature of the long marshes themselves, which are quite they're quite treacherous, and the ground has a way of kind of shifting around you. Right.
Mentor does have a quick of hearing distinctive feature that might help find the
Okay, yeah, I would totally allow that.
Alright.
Because you didn't waste very much time at all following them, so. Sorry, I had text for this, and then I mislaid it. Now I'm trying to find it again. There we go. Usually a little more on the spot than this, but been a long week.
I mean, as of right now, we're just chasing down wolves. So
Yep. All right, so the narrow land flanking both sides of the river Running, where it kind of touches the eastern eaves of Mirkwood, has been transformed into a treacherous and trackless swampland by the flooding of the river waters over many years. Recent rains and even a couple of earthquakes have caused the long marshes to expand their boundaries north to reach and engulf even the course of the Forest River, where it exits Mirkwood to the east. By now, the long marshes cover an area more than 100 miles long from north to south, and from the eastern borders of the woodland realm to the shores of the Long Lake and south beyond the mountains of Mirkwood. And the long marshes are dreary, they are treacherous, and the passage is extremely difficult, even for 3 very keen-eyed elves. finding up ways that you can step and tracks that you can follow without just completely losing yourself in in mire, in uh, uh, bogs that look like they are solid ground, but if you walked across them, you would instantly fall in and probably just be drowned forever. Um,
Well, that's not nice.
yeah, it's the and this is worsened as you get deeper into the marshes and you begin following the tracks of the wolves, aided with us by the swift hearing of Lomondor, or sorry, the swift hearing of Denethor. You um, a heavy mist begins to rise as the midday sun gets hotter, and the and kind of turns the bright light of the sun into a very pale radiance as the shadows of gnarled trees kind of stretch out overhead. Um, why don't you both give me travel rolls
Travel. I am proficient in. Well, I am proficient in travel.
as you're trying to kind of.
I am greatly proficient in travel.
I'm not.
I do have the distinctive feature of swift.
As do I.
Yeah, this is not so much about swiftness. This is more about hardihood as you're passing into the long marshes.
You said something about being in the shade.
Yep.
We do have the cultural blessing of focus desk.
Yes.
Not sure.
Yep. That would apply.
What is the cultural blessing of Folka Dust? I haven't been able to get my PDF to pull up this evening.
Hey, you made it!
Wow.
You made it!
And
So
I-
wait, what is a 12?
That's a
Wow.
that's a 12. It's just the rune G. I mean, numerically it would be worth 10, but it's an automatic success, so it doesn't really matter. That's just the way the die roller counts it.
So that's why I've never seen a 10 roll.
You 10s get rolled. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, you've seen 10 rolled. Totally happens.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, the roll table that I created for that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 0, and then it counts the Gandalf as a 10, but it's but it's an automatic success, so it doesn't really have a numerical value, right? All right, the both of you, I mean, you've spent time in Mirkwood. You're both experienced travelers. You managed to kind of keep up as you pick your way through the woods following these trails. I'm going to need a second hunting test.
Second hunting test. How does Celebrimbor do? Celebrindle.
Yeah, Celebrimbor is a different elf.
Yeah, he's the one that made the rings.
Yeah. She seems to be doing all right. She will, however, attempt to aid you both in hunting. No.
Whip.
All right.
I'll spend a point of my hope to continue tracking.
Okay.
Continue tracking.
Very good. Too many windows open.
We're the wolves today. With several tilt arrows.
Um. All right. As you get deeper into the marshes, the shadowy canopy of the wood seems to silence the sounds of nature, whether it be the buzzing of insects or the chirping of birds. Everything seems to get quiet. That doesn't mean there aren't insects. In fact, there are huge black and red flies here, which plague you But there's almost something about the trees and the way that they crowd in around you now as you get deeper and deeper into the this part of the marshes that uh, seems to oppress even sound. And you even notice when you speak to each other, it's almost like your voices are muted, and it's not clear if it's just because you're speaking in low tones to each other or if you're actually just, it's part of the corruption of this place. Um, but you slowly make your way deeper into the marshes. The trail's getting harder and harder to follow as now you come to a place that the wolves clearly know well, but you do not. And it's everything that you can do to try to keep on that trail. Um, an hour passes, 2 hours, 3 hours, until at last you come to a place deep in the woods, and at this point you've moved kind of veered away westward towards the mountains of Mirkwood, and you find that the ground is slowly growing harder and slowly sloping upward away from the river valley. I'm going to need one final hunting test.
One final hunting test. Maybe someone can succeed with all these rolls.
Hey! So at this point, Lomondor, you are getting. I mean, it's very hard to tell. You've come to a place where the ground is firmer, so there are more animal tracks in general. And as you start to lead the party in one direction, you feel kind of just a tap on your shoulder. And Celebrindle points to some very obvious wolf tracks and says, I think this is what you're looking for.
I would have found it eventually.
You follow this narrow track which begins winding very slowly up the side of a hill, which actually breaks up into rock and scree, to where you can see very clearly, overhanging the river valley, the dark mouth of a cave.
Go inside.
Is that your plan then, just to go inside?
I'm a wanderer. I like to explore new places.
I
You
see.
ever heard the legend of Leroy Jenkins?
Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, it went about like that. He died.
Perhaps one of us should. And at this point, you can hear wolves growling. You can also hear the grunts and growls and yelps of the wolves, but you can also smell this horrifying odor, which, coming out of the Long Marshes, is saying something. Like, the Long Marshes have this foul miasma that hangs over them all the time, but this is different. This is the distinctive smell of rotting flesh and bone and animal fecal matter.
I look at Denethor and say, well, we could always smoke them out.
Might be best to try to determine how many there are. If we
I could always stand here and sing, and maybe they would come out one by one, like in the story of Baron and Luthien, and you could just sort of pull them down.
That is also an idea.
Not a very good one. She turns to you, Denethor. Well, fearless leader?
Hopefully my plans are better than my storytelling.
They would have to be.
But I think we should try to be starting a fire and smoking them out.
Starting a fire at the mouth of the cave? Or... Alright.
Lomendor says, "Aha!" And he has the specialty of making fire.
As do I.
So, what do we do if they try to come out and stop you from making the fire?
Well, we go hunt some deer, cook them some meat, feed it to them. Maybe they'll become friends. We kill them.
Alright.
I mean, that's the whole point of being out here, is it not?
I agree. The sooner the wood is free of these creatures, the better. Alright, so how are you guys going about this? You gonna recon? You gonna start a fire? What are you doing?
I think we should make torches, not the cave, and then start a fire quickly with our torches.
Okay. So, with the fire making specialty, there's really no difficulty in doing so. Obviously, you'll need more than just torches for fuel.
Right, but
Well, I mean, we're in like the woods or whatnot. Surely it's not that hard to find
Yeah.
sticks.
Yeah,
you roll for fire making though, to possibly get an advancement point.
you could. To roll for it, I would say that'd be travel, because this is kind of a survival skill.
Travel.
How about athletics?
I don't really see how that's fire making. Okay, so what we'll say is that each of you finds a pretty, as big a piece of dried wood as you can carry. And you light torches, and the plan is you're gonna, I guess, scale the hill, get up to the mouth of the cave, toss the wood and toss the fire in. Is that basically the plan?
Yes. Just smoke them out of there.
Okay.
Like, kind of like Smokey Bear, I guess.
All right.
I'm gonna put that travel. No.
Well, that travel road didn't work out so well.
All right. So
Bump, bump,
Open makes the.
bump. Whip. If I can quit rolling all these ones.
So you guys decided to roll instead of taking your automatic success.
Well, oh yeah, he rolled too. I was gonna take my roll and let him automatically success if I failed.
Well, that sucks. Too late now.
All right. Well, looks like the fire is a no-go.
I mean, you are quite close to the marshes, and everything's pretty wet here.
Yeah.
So, I'd say you probably just have some trouble. It's no trouble getting a couple of torches going, but you have some trouble getting the finding enough wood that is dry enough to burn quickly, which is pretty much necessary for this plan to succeed.
We can still hear the wolves inside the cave.
Yeah, they're not quiet at all.
Well, I mean, I could also set the tips of my arrows on fire and shoot in there too.
Can we determine have a number on how many it sounds like there's in there?
You'd have to get closer for that.
I do have quick of hearing.
You'd have to get closer for that.
Okay. He's also,
Okay.
he's also
How much stealth do you have?
I have 3 in stealth.
3 in stealth? Well, maybe you can succeed at that. I have 2 in stealth.
I don't have a lot of confidence in Denethor, but
Alright, so you're gonna try to creep up closer?
Yeah, I'll roll stealth.
Well, you got an extraordinary success.
Nice.
How many wolves is in there, Denethor?
I'm gonna ask the GM how many are in there.
One moment. Gotta see if they noticed you. All right. Based on the sounds, it's very hard to see into the darkness of the cave. But based on sound, you'd guess maybe about a dozen. Or maybe 8 very big wolves.
Yeah, no, us three ain't gonna take on a dozen wolves.
So I know I was mostly joking about the Luthien thing a moment ago, but actually, the two of you are quite handy with your bows. Well, Deneth was handy with his bow. Lomondor's not bad.
Actually, it's the other way around.
I know.
Always upward jokes, aren't we?
Yeah, she's quite sarcastic.
Yes, yes.
If I
Very
were to
sarcastic.
make a sort of a challenge, the two of you could lie in wait and shoot them down as they come out. That might at least give us a couple of opening volleys before they come on. The other option is to either leave and come back later, which I'm not fond of, or to go and bait them in their den, which I'm even less fond of.
Well, I would say that would probably be the best plan.
Other than our opening volleys, do we get any other bonus for an ambush?
Yeah, to pull off an ambush, you need to make a couple of group rolls. It can be stealth or battle, and basically it gives you initiative. So normally, if you are attacking, you go, or the defender goes first. But if you succeed in an ambush, then the attacker goes first. Additionally, you get opening volleys, and your opponents do not. So, and obviously, wolves wouldn't really get opening volleys anyway. But
Yes,
you would get
unless-
to act first, and you rolling for combat advantages would be at a lower difficulty.
That sounds like a way to go.
All right, let's do some sneaking.
How's your stealth or battle?
Well, they're both at 2.
Yeah, you can
I'm
roll
gonna
either.
go
You can roll either one.
Stealth, because I have 3.
I'm rolling stealth. Bum, bum, bum. Wait just a second.
Yay!
Got that automatically.
The difficulty here. The
No.
yeah, the difficulty here. Oh gosh, Lomondor.
Yeah, I'm spending a point of hope. I'll be able to make that if I do.
Yeah, I think that Killabrinda will also spend one of her points of hope. All right, the three of you. So the two of you get into sort of position with your bows in kind of scrub or up in the tree on either side of the opening. Do you want to go ahead and roll for combat advantages?
Yes.
All right,
That would be
that is battle,
okay.
and it's
Let's
at
see if
it's
that's
at T and 14 since you succeeded with your ambush. Hey, missed it by 1, Denethor. Story of your life. All right, so PJ, you get 1 bonus success die to use in the battle.
Oh, nice.
All right, and so does Killebrindle. All right, so the three of you kind of take up position around the cave mouth, with Killebrindle down about halfway down the hillside with her back to a huge gnarled trunk of a yew tree, which is just sort of shot up, kind of, or rowan tree, which is kind of shot up, kind of sideways, twisted and gnarled, and bent downward towards the river valley out of the side of the hill, and sort of using that to brace her back against. You see her clack her spear haft on her shield face, and as she does so, she begins to sing. Now there came slowly forth and glared into the night a shape long-haired, dank with poison, with awful eyes, wolvish, ravenous. But there lies a light therein more cruel and dread than ever wolvish eyes had fed. More huge were its limbs, its jaws more wide, its fangs more gleaming sharp and dyed. With venom, torment, and with death, the deadly vapor of its breath swept on before it. Swooning dies the son of Luthien, and her eyes are dimmed and darkened with a fear cold and poisonous and drear. Thus came Sauron as wolf more great than e'er was seen from Angband's gate, to the burning south, than ever lurked in mortal lands or murder worked. Sudden he sprang, and Huan leapt aside in shadow. On he swept to Luthien lying, swooning faint. To her drowning senses came the taint of his foul breath, and she stirred. Dizzily she spake a whispered word. Her mantle brushed across his face. He stumbled, staggering in his pace. Out leapt Huan. Back he sprang. Beneath the stars, there shuddering rain, the cry of wolves at bay, the tongue of hounds that fearless slay. Backwards and forward they leapt and ran, fainting to flee, and round they span, and bit and grappled, and fell and rose. And as she sings these words from the Lay of Baron and Luthien, you hear the wolves in the den kind of go quiet, and the barking and the snarling kind of ceases. And then suddenly you hear deep, bone-chilling, heartless, cold, ancient, malicious, a long, deep howl that shakes the trees. The gravel under your feet trembles and loosens, and some of it skitters down the scree into the river valley. And I'm going to need you both to make valor tests.
Let's see. I've got a 2. I succeeded.
All right.
Although Lomondor succeeds, he's starting to regret not making the
Not making the not making that bet. Seems like
the
it.
way that howl sounded.
Seems like it kind of would have been safe.
Oh boy.
Well, we got 8 wolves here, folks.
All right. Well, you only see the first. The first 4 come out first, and they are led by a huge black wolf, even larger than the ones that you saw at the farm earlier that day. And behind it are 3 normal-sized wolves, but very clearly just pups or cubs. As snarling, they rush down the hillside, oblivious to your presence, to attack Killarindle as she sings. Opening volley time.
All right, which is it? The front pack that came out first?
Yep.
All right, I am fixing to shoot.
These guys shouldn't be here yet.
Shoot at the big bad dude. Oh, come on.
That can happen.
Elf dice.
Just Denethor.
All right. Well, I'm gonna release another one. What? Well, that's 10 points on the big dude.
Okay. And Denethor, your second shot.
Hey.
Wow! He got 15 points on the big dude.
That
I
was.
assume that's who you was attacking.
No, I clicked on one of the other ones.
All right. one of the elves. So your first shot, Denethor, misses, and as it misses, you sort of slip down from your perch, and the scrabbling of stones and gravel alerts the wolves to your presence. But as one of them turns to give a howl, your arrow just catches it in the throat. It kind of chokes out and dies as one of Lomondor's arrows hits the huge wolf, the leader, in the side of his shoulder, and he kind of rolls several feet down the hill before he gets back to his feet. At this point, he's clearly slowed. He's limping forward with the arrow still embedded deep in his shoulder. There's black blood matting the fur, and the wolves, all three remaining wolves, just throw back their head in a hideous howl. And you guys actually get to attack again because opening volleys. So
Alright. Do
because
I need to move
they're
from-
surprised. Yeah, you do at this point.
Okay. Well, I'm going to walk all the way up to TN6, take the sword out, swing at the big, the bad, and the ugly.
All right, give me an attack roll.
Oh, hold on. I'm doing it again. Ba-bum. Ba-bum. Ba-dum.
All right, you step forward in front of this great wolf. Hey, Denethor. Just rolling all the eyes to Sauron today, huh, bud? Like, all of them. The two of you both step in front of the great wolf leader and strike with your swords. As you do so, it just barrels past both of your attacks. And leaps upon you, Denethor, as Celebrindel's spear tip just glances off of its thick hide. And it is going to bite you, Denethor. This is a called shot. Nope.
He misses.
You managed to shove it off with your sword. And let's see. The other two wolves are both going to attack. One of them is going to bite Celebrindle. But it misses her as she catches it on her shield and just kind of shoves it off of her. And one is going to go for you, Lomondor. It also misses. The three of you, as you kind of form a tight knot with blades drawn, with the long spear of Celebrindle kind of out front and her shield raised, you manage to hold the line. What are you guys doing?
Well, I'm going to attack.
All right.
Bada bing, bada boom. Swing at you. Aha! 5 more points.
All right. You're attacking the wolf leader?
Yes, the wolf leader.
As the wolf leader lunges at Denethor, you thrust your blade out deep into his side. You cut a long gash, and the wolf snarls and kind of howls in pain. Still living, but you see as its entrails have begun to just fall out of its side. And what are you doing, Denethor?
I would like to intimidate, though.
All right. Give me an awe test. Missed it by... Well, let's see. You need... it's a TN 15.
So, Point of Hope, give me that.
Yeah? Okay. Your point of hope, let's see, would get you to a great success, which would rob them of
3 points of hate.
3 points of hate. Alright, I'm just going to take that all off the leader. Alright, you, what do you do to intimidate them?
Start chanting something in Elvish.
Okay, you pick up the same song of Baron and Luthien, and the next bit, which you sort of, having heard Celebrindle sing it, kind of jogs your memory a bit, and the next bit, which tells of Huon's victory over Sauron himself in wolf form. Um, a, and you just begin chanting this song of the defeat of the enemy, and the wolves kind of throw back their heads in a mournful howl of anger and fear. And Celebrindle takes this opportunity to lunge with her spear at the throat of the great beast. And wonder miracles, she hits it. And with that, as this huge wolf throws back its head to cry out in pain and anger and fear, its cry, the howl dies in its throat as you see Celebrindle's spear enter through the base of its neck and just explode out the top of its head. And with a yelp, the wolf falls dead to the ground. At this point, the other two wolves both kind of pad back a step before lunging. But lunge they do. And one of them at Celebrindle.
Wow! How did that become a 20? Oh, they got +3 on the end.
Yeah. All right. She's gonna need to make an armor test. Come on, Celebrindle. All right, against 14. Oh, yay! Cool. All right, so Celebrindle, one of them actually leaps past her shield, and as it does so, it clamps down on her arm and chest, and she's just wearing kind of padded leather armor, but the wolf doesn't actually manage to penetrate. And the other one is going to bite Lomendor. Lomendor, you take 3 points of damage.
I take 3 points of damage.
Yep.
3 points.
3 points of damage. Top of the round, Celebrindle is going to lunge with the spear and try to hit the wolf that just bit her. She hits him pretty good, actually. That wolf takes 9 points of damage as Celebrindle kind of adjusts her grip on the spear, shifts farther up the haft, and just drives the point of the spear kind of up and around in a hook-like motion straight into the wolf's side. You hear a howl of rage as bone is exposed and blood and entrails come leaking out. Denethor and Lomendor, what are you guys doing?
I am swinging at the same wolf that attacked Celebrind.
The one that she just wounded?
Yes, which one is that?
The one on the left.
One on the left. So, oops. Sword. Whip!
You bring your sword around and it just glances off the thick hide of this wolf. Denethor, what are you doing?
Yeah, doing an intimidate throw.
Okay.
He's gonna intimidate these wolves all the way back to Mordor.
Okay. What do? You keep your song up?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you sing, then suddenly Huon holds and throws his ghastly foe, his throat he rends, choking his life. Not so it ends, from shape to shape, from wolf to worm, from monster to his own demon form, Sauron changes. But that hard grip he cannot shake, nor from it slip. No wizardry, no spell, nor dart, nor fang, nor venom, nor devil's art could harm that hound that hart and boar had hunted once in Valinor. And as you reach that pitch in Valinor, the two wolves shrink back as from behind them another howl bursts forth. As you see a huge wolf appear, flanked on either side by a number of smaller wolves. Only smaller by perspective, basically.
Do these smaller wolves have hate that they are losing by?
They do, but just remember, not everything flees when it's out of hate, right? So it does mean they have abilities they can't use, but things only flee at 0 hate if they are craven, which is a specific trait that some monsters have. Wolves do not have it. All right. What are you guys doing? So these two wolves kind of pad back and they wait as not charging now, but slowly this huge wolf begins to pound down on huge paws from the cave mouth. It is huge. It is almost as big as a horse. It's not at all difficult to imagine an orc riding something like this into battle, except that it looks like it would just bite the orc's head off. It has 2 huge glowing eyes. And Kilibrintel says, she just kind of leans over to you taking the opportunity, the lull in the battle to kind of clean her spear and wipe the blood from her face. She turns to you, Lomondor, and she says, I really think you should have taken that bet.
I'm beginning to think so too.
As the huge wolf pads down towards the 3 of you. And Denethor, since you're doing the singing at the moment, she seems to single you out. It slowly begins to pad in a circle around the 3 elves, and then suddenly she lunges at you. You take 6 points of damage as she lunges at you, and you feel her jaws clamp around your shoulder. I believe that she has the...
Might be a breaking the space-time continuum tonight.
Yep, well, she's the Savage Assault ability, which allows her to spend a point of hate to attack again.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to do that.
That's just rude.
So as she clamps her jaws down on your shoulders, she's going to attempt to rend you with her claws for another 6 points of damage.
Oh boy. There is going to be a break in the space-time continuum. I didn't even know that could exist in Lord.
At this point, the other 6 wolves are just kind of standing out, almost exactly the formation that I have on the screen, but just in kind of a semicircle, watching all of this. And as she rends you, like she clamps her jaws down on your shoulder. This wolf is almost twice your size, Denethor, and she clamps her jaws down on your shoulder. She rends her huge paws, just tearing at your stomach. And as she releases you, she says,
She talks?
It has been centuries since I have feasted upon the flesh of elves. This will be a good day.
It's your turn, Denethor. What you doing?
Well, I am now at 3 endurance. I think I'm going to move to the defensive stance. No. I'm going to move to the open stance.
Do you have... What is your...
Actually move my character, right? That's just a stance, right?
Yes. What is your inspire?
0.
Oh, well, that sucks.
I have 2 in song, though.
Oh, well, that'll work, too.
Yeah.
You can use that, help everybody regain endurance. Rally comrades.
So I'm gonna move to open and attempt to rally comrades. Is that
All right.
Does that work for myself as well? If I
Yep.
Yes.
okay.
If you succeed.
Don't fail.
We're talking about Denethor here, so
Denethor is the worst.
can I use some hope? Let's see. So if I use a hope, that's gonna use.
If you use a hope, that's a great success.
Okay. Yeah.
So that'll be, I think, 3.
3 point.
Yeah, 3
Yeah.
points. 3 points for everyone.
Nice. Well,
Lomondor, what are you doing?
as disappointed as he is as not being so wise as to take the vet, he's gonna take this big bad wolf down. Oh, come on. 10, 12, 2. Man, I'm gonna spend a point of hope.
Okay, you hit.
Yeah. Oh wait, hold on. I do have a bonus.
You
die.
do have a bonus die. Do you want to spend that?
Yes.
All right.
It's a D6.
Yep.
It's the D6 if I'm correct.
Yep.
Oh, would that make that a great success?
That would make it a great success. As this wolf locks her jaws onto Denethor, rends him with her claws, and then basically trash talks into his face. You turn and you take your sword in both hands and you raise it above your head and you plunge it as hard as you can into the side of the wolf. You hear this howl of rage as she turns and whips around, now focused on you. And as you do that, Celebrindle comes in on the other side with her spear.
And when she looks at me, looks
Ah!
at me and says, what did we say about feasting on elves?"
And that moment, as she is distracted, is enough for Celebrindle to whip her spear around, and the wolf is going to need to make a protection test.
Hopefully it fails this.
Let's see.
Maybe it'll roll a Gandalf too.
Let's see, it's a spear, so it's injury rating 14. It's a pretty tough wolf. Yeah.
Oh man.
So the wolf isn't wounded, but she takes a lot of damage as Celebrindle plunges her own spear into the side of the beast. And at this point, the wolf is snarling at both of you, and now seeing their leader surrounded and pinned from both sides. You see a couple of the other wolves begin to move in. You guys are actually being saved right now by the fact that there are specific rules about how many people can be engaged with you at once. So, like, the wolves are, like, they can't all just, like, oh, 7 wolves attack you this round. So.
Yeah.
All right. It is the wolves' turn. She is going to actually bite at Celebrindle this time because she was the last person who attacked her. That will hit for 6 points of damage. And she's going to spend another point of hate to go ahead and use Savage Assault again. And attempt to rend Celebrindle. However, she misses. So she snaps at Celebrindle as Celebrindle kind of backpedals out of the way. She raises the light elven shield, and it's just enough to try to stop the rending paws of the wolf. But as she does so, the impact on her shield just kind of knocks Celebrindle back. One of the huge hounds of Sauron leaps for you, Lomondor, and attempts to bite you for 10 points of damage.
10 points of damage, my lord.
Wow.
The other 2 wolves both come at you, Denethor.
Is it?
One misses you. The other also misses you by one each time.
Wow.
The two wolves close in around you, and you manage to, wielding your blade, kind of beat them back. It's the top of the round. What are you guys doing? Celebrindle and Lomondor are up first. Lomondor.
I am attacking Great Big Scary Wolf.
Okay. Give me an attack roll.
Bada bing, bada boom. Right at you. Oh yeah! 5 more points of damage.
Just hit. PJ, how do you want to do this?
Well, as Celebrindo, as she's attacking Celebrindo, I hit her on the side and get her attention. I tell her, no, 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 that is not nice. I take
Solid
I
trash
take
talking.
one. I take one more slash at her and then shove the sword deep in her head, and then say, "Well, there goes your plans of an elven dinner now, does it?"
So you basically, as she opens her jaw to reply and snarls, you just shove the blade all the way up her mouth and throat. The tip of the gleaming elven blade protrudes out the back of her head, and you say something to the effect of, "Chew on this." Right? Instead of the screech and the howl that you would have expected to hear under normal circumstances, there is instead a horrifying odor and that just rises up and fills the air all around you as you plunge your blade into this ancient evil. And there is a scream on the wind, not like a wolf, not like a man. But the scream of a spirit long in anguish. And as it rises to a pitch, a wind whipping across the treetops over Mirkwood just sort of blows it away from the west, and the scream fades.
I cannot believe I turned that bit down.
And the other 6 wolves now back slowly away and then scatter into the woods.
Well,
Celebrindle leans on her spear and she says, "Well, all I can say is that dance would have been spectacular."
oh my goodness.
And unless either of you have
Okay.
anything else you want to do... Oh, go ahead, PJ.
Lomondor, yeah, you can tell on his face that Lomondor is quite disappointed that he was foolish enough not to take that bet.
So unless either of you has anything else you want to do, it's 10 o'clock, and kind of come to the end of this short adventure. So is there anything else you guys want to do before we call it a night?
I guess the only thing we would want to do is go back and tell the boy, and if his father made it back, that
That's right, and you owe him a
we've taken
pelt.
care of the wolf
That's right.
problem.
Yeah. All right, well, it's easy enough to skin one of these creatures, and would you like to investigate the den?
Yes, we shall. As
Um,
bad as it stinketh.
well, it stinketh pretty awful. There's one huge main sort of pit area right as you enter the cave, and that seems to be where Carchalhoer had her den. But there are several smaller kind of chambers and cubby holes off to the sides, and it looks like just going quickly over the sake of time, as you kind of investigate the den, it appears that this cave was probably naturally occurring, but at some point it was expanded, whether by dwarves or by goblins. It's kind of hard to tell at this juncture, but it wasn't always occupied by the wolves. In fact, it looks like a number of evil things have made their home here over time. Probably the previous occupants were actually driven out by the wolves, just based on there are some things here like furniture and drinking vessels and things like that wouldn't have any place in a wolf's cave or a wolf's den, but would make sense if, say, orcs had been living here.
Did anybody make a long-term deposit?
Well, that's a good question. Would you guys like to give me treasure rolls?
Treasure rolls.
Yep. So the way this works is that you both need to roll me 1d12.
One.
Sword doesn't have a particularly high rating, but you can roll me a d12.
Ooh, I got a 10.
Can you do that again?
What's that?
Can you do that again?
I said this hoard does not. So basically, the way treasure hoards work is they have ratings, and the rating determines how many d12s you roll to see if you find magical treasure. If you roll an 11 or a 12, you find something of worth. So you don't find anything of particularly great worth, but you do find something. You do find various bits and baubles. Talking, a few arm rings, some finger rings that look like they might have belonged to dwarves once. There are a couple of lesser gems. Nothing too valuable. I'd say overall worth about 6 treasure. So you can split that however you'd like.
3 and 3.
Well,
How much treasure do you have?
how much treasure do I have?
You're and new characters.
Yeah, I have no treasure.
2 and 3.
I suppose you just assume I don't want any of it.
Well,
She kind of picks.
I give her.
She picks through
I give
your
her,
stuff, Lomendor, and pulls out one ring that seems to suit her fancy, and slips it on a finger, and just kind of walks off.
So. 1, 2,
What was that, Nathan?
so 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3. Nice. Well,
All right.
as we're walking off, I say, well, maybe this. At least we ought to go feast on some wine after this battle.
I think that a meal would not be amiss, but perhaps not in the long marshes.
But it's so lovely out here. As Lomendor sarcastically replies.
All right. Well, I hope you guys had fun.
Yeah.
This is kind of a shorter, less complicated adventure than my usual fare, but sometimes that's good, and maybe helps to get inside the heads of these characters a little bit more. So, and I got to introduce a new NPC tonight, which always makes my heart happy. So,
Yeah.
all right.
And we finished at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So
I
you
don't
both.
remember the last time that happened.
Yeah. Well, it's because we started at 8. And there are only 2 of you. You both get 3 XP for tonight.
Oh, wow.
So short adventure, but 1 for the session, 1 for completing your objective, and 1 for all of the abusive flirting that Nathan had to sit through. So. All right, guys. Thank you so much for playing.
I love that NPC.